Whereas sympathy is just like, oh, gee, I feel sorry for you. Okay, bye. you know,
Yeah.
Whereas empathy is, man, I felt that way before. And gee, when I felt that way, it would have been nice if somebody did this. So why don't I see if they need this? You know? Um, so to me, that's just the difference. I think it's more human to be empathetic than it is to be sympathetic.
Definitely, definitely. You got that. You get a connection instead of you get the connection instead of an oh, I'm sorry to hear that, and disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, sympathy is more of a disconnection. That's why I'm like sympathy like implies like a class system. Somebody who's good and somebody who's not so good. And the somebody who's good is kind of like, I feel really sorry for the people who are not so good, or who are not as good as I am, you
yeah,
know. And it's just kind of the way I see it.
yeah, and yeah. Like I was just thinking, we were talking about sympathy and how it's like, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, and then move on. It's like, I've had people, that maybe people that just met me or whatever here, find out I have multiple sclerosis and they're like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then, maybe an hour later I'm running 5K, it's like, sorry to hear that. Well, why are you sorry to hear that? I still do my thing, or maybe you go off and, write this epic poem.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, what are you sorry for? You know,
Mm-hmm.
still able to do my thing and, get this cool, super cool stuff done. It's like, okay, whatever.
Well, and I find myself in that same exact place. Like there are times when I'm on a mobility scooter, there are times when I'm on a cane, there are times when I'm not using either. And for people who are not capable of empathizing, to them it's kind of like, if you're walking, then why do you need a cane? And if you're walking, why are you on a mobility scooter? And if and so there's all of these all of these judgments that are placed. And the thing is, unless you have no idea. So unless you are a multiple sclerosis patient or know somebody who has it, then you know that just because we don't look sick doesn't mean that we're not. And just because I'm in a moment where I'm not using a cane or a scooter, that means that I'm having a good day. You know what I mean? Kind of like, be happy for me that day. Instead of kind of judging, why aren't you on your cane or scooter? You must be faking it. It's like, dude, you cannot fake an MRI no matter how hard you try. You can't you cannot fake scar tissue on your brain and spine. Sorry. Doesn't happen. So so my thing is like, I feel that with you as well. And it's kind of like, because you are diagnosed with this thing that the people who are sympathetic aren't familiar with, they don't understand that we can still function like everybody else.
Yeah.
We just need to modify at times how we go about doing things. Like even writing. If writing for me is such a more easier flow than it is speaking. I have brain farts all of the time. I call them MS moments,
Yeah.
because I can be in the middle of a sentence and totally lose track of where I am in that sentence. That doesn't happen when I'm writing. That does not happen when I'm writing. Things just sort of flow, and it's kind of hard to explain that, but at the same time, people don't deserve an explanation. This is our life. If you care, then ask, and when you're given the answer, accept it. But human beings are human beings. What can you do? This is how things are. So I
Yeah.
feel you though. I do.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's like I can totally relate to those blank spots, strange mental blank spots.
Yeah.
Um I read that somewhere, and that's just stuck in my head. Strange mental blank spots. But
Question: does it happen when you're writing?
no, it does not happen when
See,
I'm writing, and I totally
see.
relate to that.
Hmm.
But it's like, I can blame it on my MS lesions, or I'm pretty sure I can still blame it on my brain injury. Even though they say those bruises have healed. I've looked at my MRIs from, since I have MS now,
Hmm.
and my lesions are in about the same, and I actually have copies of the CAT scans and MRIs from back then after my brain injury when I was 11.
Hmm.
But I've yet to sit down and set them side by side. But I'm pretty positive my lesions are in right about the exact same spots as the bruises from when I was a kid.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty sure there's a connection there. Like the disease, multiple sclerosis, the lesions will attack the weakest cells. So that's
Yeah.
my thinking on that, anyways, how they're connected. But so it's like I can blame that. I can blame MS. I can blame my brain injury. I can blame my drinking and drugging when I was a teen. I can,
Or just plain getting older.
yeah. Or I can pin it on maybe getting a year or two older than I was when I wasn't having such mental blank spots. But,
Hmm.
but the thing is just like find your outlet, find what works for you. Is like
Yep.
writing. Writing
Hmm.
works great. Don't have those, you know, mental blank spots, if you will, or MS moments.
Well, and that's why I call them, because I didn't have those mental blank spots before the diagnosis.
Yeah.
It was happening, I think, during that 6 years I went undiagnosed. So I just call them MS moments. That's what I call them.
Yeah.
And even me, like I have a benign tumor as well. It's not a brain injury, but it's a benign tumor. They're keeping an eye on it, making sure that it doesn't grow. But I mean, that could be it too. I don't know how long that thing has been there. It's been there
Yeah.
for, they can't tell me how long it's been there. It's just kind of there.
Hmm.
But for me, I just, if I don't want to have that moment, I'll just pick up a pen and start writing.
Yeah. Probably a very wise idea, just if you want to keep going, just put it on paper.
There you go. That's my lifeline,
Yeah. Right on. And another thing I wanted to ask, just so that myself and everyone else knows, so I know you've mentioned, some days you walk, some days you have a cane, some days you're on your scooter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like how is your how is the system or transit system or whatever down there for getting around town?
Oh my gosh, you don't need a car in Portland. You really don't if you're in the city. So I mean, there is the Max, which is like the train, kind of like a New York subway, sort of, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
That's the Max. And then you've got fixed route, which is like your regular buses. And then you've got the streetcar. And all of them are ADA compliant.
Oh, wow.
All of them.
Awesome.
Every single one. Every single one have ramps for the mobility scooter, and ADA seating for people with mobility impairments.
Yeah.
So if you are diagnosed with any kind of mobility impairment, Portland is one of the places that you need to be living, because they definitely accommodate, and especially moving out here from Detroit. Detroit does not have a mass transit system anywhere close to Portland. And I have actually heard that people from other states come to Portland to see how mass transit is done, because it is that good. It is that smooth. So in terms of mass transit, I couldn't be in a better place.
Right on. That's so awesome that they have, so a few options for you.
Oh, and there's also the paratransit as well. So the paratransit is door to door. So if you don't feel like, waiting for a bus or the Max or the streetcar, you qualify for paratransit, you call and you make a reservation like an Uber. This is what, but not necessarily like an Uber. You call and tell them, I'm going to this address. My appointment is at this time, and I need to be picked up at this time. And of course, nothing is ever really like right on the money. So if your appointment is at 10, you might get there by like 8:45. But they drop you off at the door, they pick you up at the door. So I mean, these are all of the options that are available for people who need that kind of service. And if you're more independent, then you can definitely take the fixed route. But in terms of mass transportation, yeah, Portland is the place to be for people who are mobility impaired.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. I know, having had to rely on public transit in the past, well, actually, I started riding the buses when I was in my teens, and and I was having to ride from way out in Enumclaw into Kent or some, Kent for counseling, and I was just riding the bus all over on my free time, and then when I got out of school, I was still riding the bus everywhere, and then they cut back bus service, so then I wasn't. Well, by then I had a car, but anyway, yeah, I've had to rely on public transit in the past, and even brief periods where my car was down, I've had to go back to riding the bus. But I do remember hearing and reading about the a few options out there so far as like you're saying, the paratransit. I forget what they call it up here, maybe the same thing, but and then there's the train, the commuter train Sounder that goes between Olympia and Seattle, and even the north one goes between Everett and Seattle. I've ridden that a few times, and that's definitely a nice way to get downtown Seattle. And rather than driving my car up there to see my MS specialist, I would just drive down the hill to Sumner, or even the station there in Bonnie Lake, and maybe catch a bus to the train station and then zip. I mean, Seattle, don't have to pay for parking. Had to walk up the hill to the Swedish MS Center, but it's like saved all that hassle with traffic and parking and all that. So it was a bonus.
Well, I know, like, put it this way, like, especially when you're downtown in Portland, having a car is just, you're paying to park. So not only are you paying for your car if it's not paid off, and you're paying for the insurance, license, registration, and maintenance, but you're also paying helly amounts just to park the thing. And that's why I'm like, if you're living in the Portland or the Tri-County area, Washington, Clackamas, or Multnomah County, you don't really need a car. If you're going to live in Beaverton, yeah, you might need a car if you're living in Beaverton, just because it's more suburban. Clackamas may be the same way, but if you're going to be spending a lot of time downtown, a car is just an additional expense here, and if you can, awesome, good for you. But it's a headache just to find a place to park sometimes that's affordable.
Yeah.
So